I think this person, Geno Samuel, is a real is a real example of something that I think is very probably one of the worst kinds of people on the internet. I think. So he's one of those people who people praise for varieties of creativity, but when you actually examine the sort of depths of where like the creativity comes from, you realize he's actually just being a real second-hander and sort of like dotting check marks of what it means to have a sort of acceptable piece of art. Like for example, the documentaries is just something that he makes documentaries of all kinds, and documentaries are really in the past 5 years have really just been an overrated thing in general that take time and work, but they don't take the kind of time and work that's really real creativity in my opinion. It's just people sort of doing it because they know it doesn't take as much thought to do it. Not to mention, and the other thing I noticed too is I'm not too familiar with like Japanese pop music or whatever. It's basically like 80s, 90s pop music or whatever. But from just listening to his music a little bit, again, I'm not saying it doesn't have any effort, but I can kind of just, it is a bit of an assumption, but I can kind of tell that he's like the singing voice and the dialect and everything that he chooses to adopt seems again very much just based on copying other people, copying other Japanese pop stars to the point. Oh, and another detail about that is I noticed, like for example, he covers certain songs primarily that are just popular with certain groups that follow him online, such as like Glimpse of Us or Plastic Love or things like that. He's really just I feel like he's really truly a person whose value is measured by how much other people like him as opposed to actually doing anything that he really enjoys. But the worst thing of all is the fact that he is an indirect supporter of the idea of sort of obsessing over people and overly sort of almost encouraging like a creepy like Truman Show style of supporting an obsession of somebody. So I guess I don't. Maybe it's not that a lot of other people might already know, how long this one person who is known as Chris Jan or whatever has been, I guess, a figure who's been known, mainly been made fun of, but even when not made fun of, just sort of obsessed over on the internet for like, what is it, like 20 years? I think this person's like 40 years old. But basically, here's the thing about that. So, like when I first, I think I first heard of Chris Chan like I think it was like in like 2014, and I remember it was in this Skype call with somebody, and really like the person who introduced me to this person was like really defined the kind of communities that follow this person, which was like somebody who was like really obsessed for no real purpose. Like for example, I remember immediately he starts sort of talking about, I forget what, they were very like mundane details about Chris Chan's life of like, I forget, like, he talked to this person, he did this, he went and talked to his mother, I forget exactly what it was, but he was talking almost like the same way like a kid would talk about would present an oral report to the class or something, as if they would felt some need to inform people on all these details. But he was talking about a bunch of things where I was like, why do you even, no wonder I don't remember the details, why would anyone have a reason to care about any of this stuff? And here's the thing. One point I wanted to get across is I feel like when it comes to internet drama, right, which internet drama is a big thing, I have always considered myself someone who is not aloof from internet drama. And the other thing too is that it can be addicting, things like that, and I get that. However, the issue I've always had with the Christian people is that in most internet drama, it at least usually starts when someone's say doing an art form or something, or doing, a bunch of musicians compete, or I don't know what it is, just something, of people getting mad at each other over something. The thing that's always bugged me about the Christian people is that it seems to be like it's over nothing. They care about the person solely to do with things in their personal life. And the other thing that annoys me is they say that they don't hate this person, but that doesn't change the fact that nobody would even know who this person Christian is if it weren't for the fact that back in when was it, 2005 or whatever. I'm not one of those obsessed people. Of course, I don't know all the details. They know the fact is that they would not have given a crap about this person if it weren't for the fact that it originated from online bullying, whatever you want to call it, of harassment. They were making fun of this person, I think, for his comics, the Sonichu thing. And they could tell clearly that this person, you know, had social skill issues and I guess what most of society would consider autistic. Obviously something you don't want to make fun of. So you get people like Geno Samuel, you know, my thoughts are a little jumbled, but like where he claims that he supports Christianity, doesn't hate the person, but you wouldn't be making these documentaries at all if it weren't for the origin of how this person is just at his origin a victim of serious internet trolling and like really obsessive internet trolling too. I wouldn't be surprised if most of the people, at least I would hope, who originally made fun of this person, Christian, burned their comic or whatever, have totally forgotten about this person, but becomes a sort of collective thing. And the excuse Geno Samuel makes to enable his own addiction and obsession is, well, he's the most documented figure on the internet almost. So, you know, it's really interesting. And I'm just a documentarian who keeps making these fucking boring ass, completely pointless documentaries about the fucking Eskimos. And all my mindless followers tell me that I'm better at documentaries than Netflix, even though Netflix, I don't know why you would even think they're good at anything. They think this guy, you know, something else that annoys me about this guy, Geno Samuel, is he's one of those people, right? There's so many people online now who are sort of nice, like fake nice. He's one of those people who you can tell is kind of shy and has like the lack of masculinity, you could say, that a lot of people like my age seem to struggle to have. But he's polite in a socially acceptable way, yet he's found a way to enable his own bad side just in a certain form that happens to be acceptable in the eyes of most people, which is making slow, boring documentaries obsessing over an autistic person who would probably be much happier if nobody knew about them on the internet. And I don't care if Chris Chan says he likes his obsessors. I don't care if Geno Samuel remembers Chris Chan's pronouns, okay? It's still completely shitty because it's not a matter of the person, Chris Chan, Chris, whoever. It doesn't matter what that person's been through, or whether you sympathize with them, or whether you hate them. The fact that you care about them personally at all, I think, shows a huge mental issue. Like, for example, there is a person who made a lot of videos making fun of. That person, look at this channel, Level 1 Online, and a bunch of people who are friends with him, okay? The thing is about that is, why have I made fun of this person so many times? Is it because he made Sonichu comics? Is it because he had a history of being documented for 10 years? No, it's because this person has actually done shitty things that actually impacted other people. He's doxed people. He's fucking obsessed over YouTubers. He's supported a lot of other YouTubers being fake. He's a fucking compulsive liar. Yeah, you can make fun of him for how he doesn't do anything in his life, but that's not the core of it. Nobody would find things to insult him for. Nobody would have any real reason to insult him first or call him gay or whatever if it weren't for how he first did shitty things that actually impacted other people. Like, for example, apparently like a year ago, Chris Chan went to jail. I think he's still in jail because he had sex with his mother. Now, don't get me wrong, I think that's terrible. On a psychological, personal level, I'd imagine that was very emotionally damaging. However, that doesn't change the fact that that doesn't affect anyone else. That doesn't affect anyone else on the internet. It's still not your business how he did something incestual. In fact, unless like he raped her or something, I mean, I don't know the details, but like I do find it a little strange, in fact, how he went to jail for that. I mean, not that I agree with having sex with your mother at all. I'm just saying I don't see how that is a reason to remove somebody from society or punish them when they didn't do anything that affected other people. But okay, that's a different argument, I guess. Another thing I noticed rambling on about this guy, Geno Samuel, is, and I've, maybe this goes on to a different subject, but he's an open supporter of a site Kiwi Farms. Now, Kiwi Farms is a great example, I think, of, not only hypocrisy, but like, enabling people's addictions to obsess over other people or to harass them. And what was I gonna say? The thing that annoys me about some of the people who defended, like for example, one of the big guys who was defending Kiwi Farms on YouTube when it was like, temporarily down was Destiny, right? And what he does to defend Kiwi Farms is essentially not really defend Kiwi Farms, but just point fingers at other people. Like for example, he points to this website called Docspin. That's basically like another Kiwi Farms, but less popular. And he's like, well, Docspin's worse. They're fucking worse. It doesn't matter if they're worse. You're just using that as an excuse to defend the probably much more harmful site, Kiwi Farms. The reason I say it's probably much more harmful is probably because it's so much more popular. Of course Kiwi Farms is worse. And he said that just because, for example, Keffels, right, the person who ran the campaign that attacked Kiwi Farms and everything, he starts going on about, well, Keffels did all this bad stuff. Keffels is a fucking child rapist communist. Yeah, well, I agreed with a lot of the things that he was saying that were criticisms about Keffels. Doesn't change the fact that Keffels actually did something about it. Doesn't change the fact that none of that matters at all in the subject matter. You're just trying to find other things to point fingers at in order to try and sort of make up excuses to defend Kiwi Farms. None of those criticisms of Docspin or Keffels actually justify Kiwi Farms at all. In fact, it just makes me think that Destiny is a tool. I don't know if that's for certain, but it kind of seemed that way. Like he creates a Substack account just to write one writing defending Kiwi Farms, and that's it. And he's like, I don't want to mention this website, Docspin. I'm like, well, by that logic, you shouldn't be mentioning the name Kiwi Farms either. Kiwi Farms is just as bad. You're only mentioning it just because it's more popular. This guy even was scummy enough to say that he wanted to donate money to Kiwi Farms. I don't think he did, but Jesus. But I think Kiwi Farms is worse because it doesn't have the name Docs in the name. It's dishonest and it just tries to slowly sort of influence. They say it's an archival. Boogie2988 made a good point when he said, Kiwi Farms, a Kiwi Farms fan will describe to you the website much differently than it actually is. They'll say it's an archival site. They'll say it's for justice or whatever. And yeah, it does represent what a lot of people in society believe is good. A lot of people in society do believe that harassing people is good. I feel like particularly people with a more left-wing mindset, which is again pretty hypocritical given the fact that the Kiwi Farms people were claiming it was a bunch of leftist trans people oppressing them. It's like, you're the one acting like the trans person. When Kiwi Farms was suddenly shut down by Cloudflare, Destiny suddenly says, I just don't really like the idea that a website can have this happen to them. And I'm like, Destiny, I thought you were supposed to be the YouTuber that doesn't get so attached to ideologies. Why are you suddenly saying things like, I don't like the idea or the philosophy that this can happen? You should be looking at the actual specific situation. You should be looking at why it was taken down, for Christ's sake. That's just hypocrisy of him just saying things that are convenient at the present moment. Who knows? Maybe Kiwi Farms pay them or something. You never know. Not to mention, you're the people, caring so much about whether you remember Chris Chan's pronouns or not, because it doesn't matter whether that person's a good person or not. And that's the other thing too. They're part of the reason Chris Chan's so interesting is because he's been through such horrible things. I'm like, guys, listen to yourself. You've documented this person obsessively, for more than half their 40-year-old life. And then you're suddenly feeling sympathy for him because he found out bad things happened to him. Newsflash, bad things and traumatic things happen to everybody. YouTubers do not seem to understand this. They seem to think that you can make some sob story about yourself that's true and just garner sympathy. No, of course everybody's been through horrible things. That's no excuse. I think it's just more excuses to enable an unhealthy obsession. What I don't like is, again, just like what I mentioned with Destiny, he's a defender of Kiwi Farms, and he does it in ways where he's kind of indirect about it. For example, on Twitter, he's just Kiwi Farms doesn't do anything wrong. In fact, once in one of Geno Samuel's numerous tweets to try and justify Kiwi Farms, he deliberately chose somebody to respond to he deliberately looked out for somebody who was making a false claim, which was they were claiming that people on Kiwi Farms hated Chris Chan. And basically, Geno Samuel was making the point, well, a lot of people on Kiwi Farms have a form for Chris Chan, but they don't attack this person, they like Chris Chan. Well, And he even, there's a tweet from Geno Samuel where he literally says, like, for example, people on Kiwi Farms, the last time someone on Kiwi Farms tried to make fun of Christian, other people on there doxed that person and attacked them because of it. So it was almost as if he was like blatantly supporting. I don't see how that wasn't him just blatantly supporting the doxing and harassment. Like he was saying that in a positive connotation. Like, yeah, they doxed this person who said they didn't like Chris Chan. Like that's what he's actually just openly encouraging now, just because they're hating somebody he likes, that it's okay to dox them and attack them. And he doesn't openly say it, but like in every one of his episodes of his fucking Chris Chan fetish obsession series, he says like, all sources come from CWC Wiki and Kiwi Farms. Not only do they try to like make it sound like a freedom of speech issue, right? Even though that's if you're claiming, you know, Kiwi Farms not being hosted by Cloudflare or whatever is a freedom of speech issue that should be political, then at the same time you're claiming that you don't believe in freedom of business. Because you're then saying that whoever happens to be hosting the website on an internet, was there some law that said the internet has to host every site there is? No. If you're not giving Cloudflare or whatever other hosts the freedom to stop hosting, as long as you're not still making Kiwi Farms pay you, then of course it's fair. And then they even start trying to like dox the other hosts, the people involved with that. So you get this sort of easily contradictable rhetoric in favor of these sites, right? You know, ignoring, of course, all the times that Kiwi Farms has indirectly led to suicide, it's indirectly led to death of so many people, and they take advantage, you know, of these leftist social justice warriors types saying like, oh, it's just these social justice warriors, you know, saying these trans people were triggered or whatever. Well, first of all, it is still true that they legitimately like led to the suicides of some LGBT people, and people of Kiwi Farms know full well that those are not the only people. The demographic does not matter to them. It just matters whether they obsess over them. They have a whole forum you can check right now. Go on Kiwi Farms. They have an entire forum dedicated to Ethan Ralph. He's a streamer on Cozy TV. That's probably the most right-wing you can get. So if you claim that, and Ethan Ralph has exposed on Twitter how they even tried to kidnap one of his family members. And of course, you know, it's a whole forum, you know, so it's not Kiwi Farms' fault. It was just a random person on Kiwi Farms. Yeah, you gotta think for a second. Does that normally happen anywhere? I don't think so. But like I said, I feel like trying to keep this to Geno Samuel just because that's the guy who pisses me off. Like, he stays on the sidelines to try and become a tool, you know, to not only enable his own unhealthy obsessions. Oh, by the way, apparently this freedom of speech lover Geno Samuel has recently announced that he's moving to China. So yeah, wow, what a true freedom fighter. I suppose the only other detail is that, like, I noticed this person, Geno Samuel, was openly put on a pretty big podcast, Trash Taste podcast, you know, with the anime tubers and everything. So I feel like people should really think about the fact that such a large podcast was willing to put on somebody who, if you ask me, is really obviously just supports doxing and harassment of other people. Now, from what I understand about Trash Taste Podcast, they never seem to talk about anything. Maybe they just had nobody to talk to. I don't know if the excuse was that, oh, Geno Samuels also lives in Japan with us, you know, whatever, he's in the anime. I have no idea. But they literally just make a 2-hour thing supporting Chris Chan, saying, oh, it's so impressive how you know so much about this person, how you documented this person. Documentaries are very fucking good. They're not. I think that just means Bookwalker, the company that owns Trash Taste, is just, you're letting a giant company support that, all just for views or something. But you know, if you have any refutations to what I'm saying, you try to make this great documentary. No. They take no effort. And I can say that without making it, because it's true. Come at me, brother. Come at me, brother.